So yeah, this is a special mini review and it's not part of the Halloween ones that I'm doing. But I just recently found out that October 21st is a very special day for fans of the Back to the Future movies. And if anyone remembers my bisexual movie buff review of Firebird 2015 AD, I said that I was thinking about doing the Back to the Future trilogy, specifically so I could talk about Part 2, because it takes place in 2015, and when I found out what October 21st means to fans of the series, I thought, there's no better time. So, I guess I'll start with the first movie. Back to the Future was made in 1985. It was directed by Robert Zemeckis, and also was written by Zemeckis and his good friend Bob Gale. And it's about a teenage boy in 1985 named Marty McFly, played by Michael J. Fox, who has a May-December friendship going on with a 60-something-year-old man named Doc Brown, played by Christopher Lloyd. And as his name suggests, Doc Brown is a scientist doctor who has invented a time machine out of a DeLorean. If you don't know what a DeLorean is, just look it up on Wikipedia. You'll probably find it. And through some circumstances, Marty ends up going back in time to 1955, where he ends up meeting his parents back then. And he accidentally messes up his parents' first meeting, where his mother became smitten with his father. And through unfortunate circumstances, his mother now is smitten over him. So he goes to find the 1950s version of his friend Doc Brown, and together they work to not only get the time machine working again to send him back to the future, but also to get his parents back together. It's a great classic movie of sci-fi and comedy, and the sci-fi in the first Back to the Future is surprisingly pretty minimal. Most of it happens in the beginning and towards the end. But overall, it's a fun film that is the original retro movie, and it showed that if a mother lusts after her son, not knowing that he's her son, it's not creepy, it's funny. And the second movie in the series is Back to the Future Part 2, and this is the main one I wanted to talk about. It opens with Marty McFly and Doc Brown going to the year 2015, and the filmmakers admit that they didn't want to set the film in the future because every movie that takes place in the future overdoes it. A good example is Blade Runner, which it takes place in 2019, and they thought we'd be at a place where we can make synthetic humans and have giant flying cars. And in Back to the Future Part 2, they also show flying cars, but Robert Zemeckis and Bob Gale, they admit that they deliberately overdid the futureness because they figured if we're gonna set in the future, we might as well make it as absurd and unrealistic as possible. And as Avery Brooks once said, "Where are the flying cars? I was promised flying cars. Why are there no flying cars?" Classic. And a lot of the gadgets in Back to the Future Part 2 during the 2015 scenes are pretty awesome. Like a little mini pizza about the size this big, and you put it in this machine and it becomes a full-size pizza. That looks cool. The flying cars definitely are awesome looking. And then there's the hoverboards, which Zemeckis said, or it was Bob Gale, said in an interview that they were real, and that this toy company gave them the first experience with it. They were just joking, but given how people are, some thought they were serious and actually tried to go buy some. And then circumstances have Marty and Doc going back to 1955 and having to sneak around themselves back from the events of the first film. And it's pretty surreal and pretty awesome, pretty cool looking, where you basically have Michael J. Fox sneaking behind himself from the first film. Back to the Future Part 2, although it's not the favorite of many, it is my personal favorite because it just goes all out and it makes some things that normally would tick me off work. And the future scenes, although overstated, overbloated, and I will admit some of the effects for the future scenes are pretty dated, but they are fun and enjoyable, and oh, wish we had stuff that could make us fly. And the third film This was definitely something new. Like, the second film was kind of copying the first one. The third one has Doc and Marty going back to the Old West. And basically the whole film is a western where you have a guy who can make inventions with the primitive tools so he can have some kind of things that he would have had in the 80s. Like, for example, he has a freezer that is about the size of a house and it just puts out a few ice cubes every once in a while. And Back to the Future Part 3, it has a pretty awesome train chase scene, and then there's this awesome crash. That's all I'm gonna say, and the Back to the Future trilogy is an awesome trilogy, and I highly recommend everybody see it. And like Firebird 2015 AD, Part 2 was just so wrong. Ugh. But I still love it.